I'm Steve Keith, President of Seattle Council of Navy League, and on behalf of the entire council, thank you for joining us. As you may know, Navy League of the United States was founded in 1902 with the encouragement of President Theodore Roosevelt, with a specific charter to advocate for and support the sea services. It is in that spirit that we are here today. I'm proud to welcome you to the Navy League Seattle Coast Guard Update, one of the mainstays of our annual calendar, and an important element of keeping ourselves informed about the sea services so that we may better advocate for them. We're glad you can join us tonight, and if you would prefer to watch proceedings on a bigger screen, you can search for Navy League Seattle in YouTube on your TV and watch the live broadcast there. Although you can't all see each other, we're happy to welcome our members and guests to the meeting tonight. We're particularly honored to have among our number retired Admiral Steve Metrick and Joe Kuzmic, plus Navy League Regional President Larry Salter. Welcome all. We opened tonight's program with the national anthem recorded from previous presentations by our Blue Angels Squadron of the Sea Cadets. Thank you, Sea Cadets. We now call the meeting to order in the traditional manner of the Seattle Council by ringing the bell presented to us by former Council Presidents Tom and Diane Jaffa. Past President Jeff Davis will do the honors from our office and production studio on the waterfront at World Trade Center, Seattle.
Thank you, Steve. I bring this meeting to order.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Our agenda tonight begins with a short update on Seattle Council activities and plans, and then shifts to focus on the United States Coast Guard, with a presentation from our adopted unit, Station Seattle, and remarks from our featured speaker, Rear Admiral Jack Boat, Commander of Coast Guard District 13, followed by a question and answer period. First, an update on Seattle Council activities and plans so far in 2021. We started with our annual meeting in February, which was our first virtual evening event like this. And we heard from Admiral Aiken, Commander of Carrier Strike Group 3. We participated in the Navy League Fly-In, which is a national Navy League effort to brief members of Congress and their staffs on what the Navy League views as the priorities for the coming 2 years. Vice President for Legislative Affairs Laura Mathers and former National Director Mark Haller and I all participated in that. In fact, we had one last meeting was this morning where we participated with a brief with Larry Salter for Representative Rick Larson. And the playbook for these briefs is the Navy League Maritime Policy 2021-2022, which you can see on the Navy League website. And also you can see a link to it from our Scuttlebutt. In May, we also had the Port of Seattle update with Executive Director Steve Metrick. Of course, tonight we're hearing about the Coast Guard. We have monthly socials planned for June and July. Right now, these are still the virtual socials that we've been having, but we're looking forward to an in-person form of the social as soon as the restrictions are lifted for that kind of thing. And of course, the highlight of the summer is Fleet Week. And again, this year is going to be a virtual Fleet Week, as we've talked about before. Last year's virtual Fleet Week was a huge success with millions of views of content from over 50 organizations, including us and all of our partners in Seafair Fleet Week. So we're looking forward to another great Fleet Week this year and an even better one next year when we actually have the fleet here on the doorstep. So that's what we've been doing, and then our plans for the fall will begin to take place in the next couple of months, and we're hoping that includes a return to in-person meetings and an actual evening dinner event like we used to have. So look forward to those kind of things. Stay tuned in the Scuttlebutt for news of our plans as they develop. So shifting to the headline portion of the program, let me set the stage for why we're honored to have our Coast Guard friends here with us this evening. As we talked about at our last meeting, America is a maritime nation, and of course, Seattle is a maritime city. Puget Sound is the nation's 4th largest container gateway for commercial traffic, and it's also the nation's 3rd largest fleet concentration area for the sea services. The United States Coast Guard is a critical component of our maritime environment here. As they say on their webpage, the mission of the 13th Coast Guard District is to be ever vigilant in protection of the Great Pacific Northwest, providing maritime safety, security, and law enforcement, regulatory oversight of commercial and recreational waterways users, and protection of the environment. As part of our Navy League mission, we have a number of adopted sea service units, including several Coast Guard units. I will ask Joe Kuzmic, our Vice President for Military Affairs, to introduce tonight's featured unit.
Hey, thanks very much, Steve. Great to be here. Welcome, everyone. Before I introduce the first speaker, let me just take a moment and sort of pitch the adopted units. We're very proud at Seattle Navy League of our adopted units. You see the Coast Guard units up there, notably notably removed last year was the Coast Guard cutter Mellon that were taken out of U.S. service and moving over to Bahraini service. But those are the Coast Guard units there. There's about a dozen other Navy and Marine Corps units as well. You can see my bold pitch above that. We're looking for unit volunteers to liaise with those units between Seattle Navy League and the fleet, if you will, so that we can coordinate activities with those units and then also spend the relatively small but nonetheless real activity budgets that we've budgeted for them. So if you're interested in that kind of a thing, please give me a holler. It's right there in bold, or in the blue box rather. My email and my phone number, scribble them down. You can call me if you just want to jaw jack about Navy stuff or Coast Guard stuff or Marine Corps stuff. But mostly I'd like to hear you talking about wanting to volunteer to liaise with units. You can see the bottom of the list of Coast Guard units there is our speaker this evening, our first speaker this evening, Coast Guard Station Seattle. Lieutenant Alex Cropley is with us. Thank you, Alex, for taking time. I was beneficiary of Coast Guard services, a small part of that, as I took John C. Stennis in and out of port countless times, in and out of Bremerton and other parts of the world, but particularly Bremerton. With security forces, always professional, easy to work with, and just incredible for me personally. And then, Coast Guard Station Seattle, I won't steal Lieutenant Copley's thunder, but it's the only major military facility in King County. So we're particularly proud of it here at Seattle Navy League, including the fact that it's in the shadow of the stadiums. And I can't tell you how many times when heading to the Seahawks, Sounders, or M's games, I took advantage of some very friendly extra service there to park myself. Anyway, Alex Cropley, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thanks again for taking time out of your busy day. We're very appreciative of you and your service. Go ahead.
Good evening, sir. Thank you very much. Thanks to the Navy League of Seattle for having me this evening. I'm at work. I thought this would be the best place to do it as I have a 7-month-old at home, but I'm having a little bit of difficulty with the Wi-Fi. So my sincere apologies if I drop. We're right here on Pier 36 on the Seattle waterfront, located right in King County. We have a crew of 40 active duty and a reserve component of 30. If you'll switch to the next slide, sir. Thank you very much. And one more slide. In addition to the crew, we have 6 resources to respond to search and rescue throughout the Puget Sound. We have 3 45-foot response boat mediums and 3 29-foot response boat smalls. Next slide, please. Some of the missions that we do here are search and rescue, maritime law enforcement, marine environmental protection, living marine resources, marine safety, defense readiness, and port waterways coastal security. We have great partnerships with Washington State Patrol, Washington State Ferries, Seattle PD, Seattle Fire Department, Customs and Border Protection, and many other state and local resources to accomplish all of these missions. Next slide, please. Station Seattle's AOR is pretty expansive. It's 3,000 nautical miles of coastline, including all of the Puget Sound, the Hood Canal, and Lake Washington and Lake Union. In any given direction, it takes us about 2 hours to get north, south, east, or west. So it's quite an expansive AOR, but we're fortunate to have the 45-foot response boat medium, which cruises at 30 knots and can go as fast as 43 knots. Not quite as fast as any of Admiral's helicopters, but it certainly gets us around well throughout the AOR and offers a great response capability. Next slide, please. Back in 2020, we did 232 search and rescue cases. This year, we've conducted 155, and we're definitely on track to surpass last year's numbers. The majority of the cases you can see are adrift vessels. So last year, we responded to 98 adrift vessels, and many times these are vessels that don't have any owner that we're able to locate. So one thing I will say is if you don't have a vessel that requires a registration, please place a sticker on that vessel with your name and contact information so we can hopefully track you down and confirm that you or one of your loved ones is not in distress. In addition to those cases, we respond to quite a few disabled vessels, sinking and capsized vessels, and a few persons in the water. Last year, we did 45 maritime law enforcement boardings. This year, we're definitely on track to surpass that. Without COVID, we've completed about 70 law enforcement boardings, and that's the majority of the interactions you may have on the water with my crew. So we're going on board other vessels to ensure they are carrying all the right safety equipment and hopefully that they have it when they need it. Here at Station Seattle, we're also a Port Waterways Coastal Security Level 1 unit. We're the largest Port Waterways Coastal Security Level 1 unit in all of PAC area on the West Coast, and we conduct ferry escorts. So anyone who's ridden the Washington State ferries, you'll probably see 2 Coast Guard boats on occasion. We do routine and random patrols of the Washington State ferries, and we'll escort them from their point of departure to their point of arrival. And that's just to provide an overt presence for the general public. We also do maritime security patrols throughout the AOR, and this is just to gain maritime domain awareness to get familiar with our ports and everything that are going on in them. Next slide, please. Wanted to kind of make this plug. So number one, always wear your life jacket. I know Admiral has passed many messages over the years, and I'm sure he'll foot stomp that today as well. In addition to wearing your life jacket, have a plan. When you go out on your boat or your friend's boat, know where you're going, know who you're with, know their experience level, and make sure you check your gear. Make sure that all your safety gear is in good shape and it's readily available in the event you need it. And then stay educated. There's some great classes through the local power squadrons in the state to gain additional knowledge about the area and the tools you may need out there. And then one last thing I also wanted to mention was the Coast Guard app. If you haven't seen it and you're a boater, it's a great resource to download on your phone. It's just as easy as go into the App Store and type it in Coast Guard. It's the only one that comes up, and it has an expansive amount of resources there. You can just click that red button that you can see on the left-hand side and report your emergency. It'll pass the nearest command center your exact GPS location. And it's also a great reporting tool. You can go in and you can report any type of pollution incident, security incident. You can check the requirements for your particular vessel and size. And there's a lot of other great resources available there. Next slide, please. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our amazing Coast Guard Auxiliary. The Coast Guard Auxiliary, we have 26,000 nationwide. They have over 1,800 vessels, 160 aircraft, and 1,400 radio sites. Here in the Puget Sound, we work extensively with our auxiliary, and we certainly couldn't do the mission, in particular the seafarer support and many of the other large-scale marine events that we do without them. So thank you. If you are in the auxiliary or support the auxiliary, thank you very much. Next slide, please. And lastly, how to contact the Coast Guard. If you are a mariner, you can always call VHF channel 16. I know in today's day and age, and especially on the lakes, not as many mariners have the VHF radios. However, we can also contact the nearest command center, which here in the Puget Sound is, you can reach them at the number below, the 206-217-6001, or much easier, you can just call 911, and 911 dispatch will get you in touch with the nearest command center. When should you call the Coast Guard? Anytime you think you may need to call the Coast Guard is probably a great idea to do so. Some situations are possible people in distress, aids to navigation that might be watching off station, endangered marine mammals, suspicious activity at a marine waterfront facility, or really anything else. So please don't hesitate to contact the Coast Guard. We're here 24/7, 365, and we're here to help. Next slide, please. Any questions?
We may not have any questions right now, but if we do at the later one, we'll get right back to you.
Yeah, I do have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Yep.
Two questions. One, Port Townsend Maritime Center has an alternative VTS set up in case you guys kind of have problems. Have you ever exercised that to see how it works?
You're on mute.
Oh, my apologies. I may have been on mute for that. We have not exercised that here at the station. However, the Joint Harbor Operations Center here on base maintains that capability with VTS. So they may have exercised that recently, but I personally can't speak to that.
Hey, Lieutenant Steve Metrick here. Hey, just wanted, congratulations, that's a great job you have there. But can you just reflect over the last year of how the COVID, the virus, may have affected you and your crew and how you dealt with it over the last year?
Absolutely, sir. It was definitely challenging in the beginning. And I really appreciate Admiral's leadership and the leadership that all his team put forth. There was very little information known and very little governing policy. So a lot of it was right at the station level, making decisions that we thought would hopefully protect the crew and keep us safe. So initially, on the onset of COVID, we reduced the amount of leave and liberty that we were allowing our crews to take to keep them close to the units and keep them safe. That worked very, very well and allowed us to maintain our response capability here at the station. We did have a litany of quarantines. I think we were adding it up the other day, and I can speak for my unit alone. We had 61 isolations and quarantines, many out of precaution to keep the rest of the crew safe. And it did work very well. Over the last year, COVID did not affect our operational readiness at any point in time, and we were able to maintain 100% operational readiness even if that was myself or one of the other members on my staff on the boat crew. So we were able to get through, and we're certainly happy to have been offered the vaccine, which many of my crew members did accept, and is definitely a game changer with our readiness.
I have a question about that too. So have all the Coast Guard active duty that are on the vessels and stuff, since they might have to interact with the public in a safety manner, have they all been vaccinated, or what's the status of that for the Coast Guard?
Right now, since it hasn't been fully approved by the FDA, it's just in the emergency authorization phase. It has not been required for all active duty members to get it. With that said, I can speak for my unit, Coast Guard Station Seattle. 95% of my active duty and reserve crew has opted in to receive the vaccine, and to date has received it. So I can't speak for the overall vaccination rate of the entire district or PAC area, but I can say our numbers are pretty high, and I think they're continuing to increase by the day. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one more.
Yes, sir.
You can put me on mute if you get tired. Years ago, when I was still on active duty, when I was stationed out of Sandpoint on the Admiral staff, we actually got a tour of the VTS, which is pretty impressive. I still remember that, and that's been, God, I don't know how many years now, probably 23 years ago. Once the COVID kind of thing goes away and things are sort of back to normal, whatever that is, would there be any opportunity for you to do a VTS tour for some of the Navy League folks maybe that haven't experienced that?
Absolutely, sir. In addition to the VTS, we also have the Joint Harbor Operations Center here on base, and they're the essentially launch authority and dispatch center for Station Seattle and many of the other units throughout the Puget Sound. So we'd be happy to link up with the Navy League. I know Mr. Keith has my email and has been in communication with me. So we'd be happy to do that in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
One other quick question.
Yes, sir.
Your chain of command, can you explain that a little bit? Like who you report to and, you know, what it, because as a lieutenant, being a CO, I mean, that was always, as a retired Navy guy, we were always envious of young lieutenants and stuff being COs. I was an 05 before I got to be a CO, but so who do you report to, and how does all that work?
I will say there's a lot of different lot of different people between me and Admiral. Although we do get to wave as we drive by Alki in our 29s and 45s. But all joking aside, so here at the station, I do consider myself extremely fortunate to be in this billet. Coast Guard wide, I think there's about 1203 lieutenant jobs for station commands. So I'm absolutely honored to be here at station and enjoy every minute of it, and only have 1 year left. So I'm cherishing every day. My chain is through Sector Puget Sound. So I report directly to the Incident Management Department head, who is a 04 lieutenant commander over at Sector Puget Sound. He would report to the Response Department head, who's an 05, who would then report to the sector commander. And then the sector commander would go through Admiral staff up at the district.
I have another question if I can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, about 2 years ago, I did an Arctic tour, you know, an ecotourism ship, but I also spent 3 years with the maritime headquarters in Halifax with the Canadians. So I'm kind of familiar with the importance of the Arctic area and kind of the stuff that's going on now, because I've still kept in touch. So what are we doing Coast Guard wise? Are we doing Arctic patrols still? Are we doing additional patrols? Is there a concern with the Russians and the Chinese and everybody and their brother passing through the Arctic, which technically belongs to the Canadians, but closely guarded by the US, of course?
Hey, Larry, this is Steve Keith. I'm gonna defer that question. I think that's more properly for the Admiral to handle. If
Okay, no problem. Okay.
Lieutenant Cropley. So I'll say thank you, Lieutenant Cropley, and the men and women of Station Seattle. And we certainly look forward to touring in the unit again once that becomes possible, because we would very much like to see your patrol craft as well as the VTS and the Joint Center. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, sir. We look forward to having everyone down, and thanks for bringing up this last slide here. I think that's Mr. Keith. 2 years ago, just before I took command at station, driving one of our 45s as they adopted us as one of the dependent units. So thank you very much for your time and support. It means a lot to Station Seattle and my crew here, and we look forward to seeing you out on the water and hopefully supporting future events.
All right. Well, thank you. And I had nothing to do with getting that picture in the slide there, but anyway. So this brings us to our featured speaker for the evening, Rear Admiral Vogt, who is the commander of the 13th Coast Guard District headquartered here in Seattle. And as you may know, the 13th District is quite large. It includes Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana, with more than 4,400 miles of coastline, 600 miles of inland waterways, and 125 nautical mile border with Canada. Originally from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Rear Admiral Vogt is a 1987 graduate of the Coast Guard Academy. After an initial assignment aboard a cutter, he was selected for naval flight training, earning his wings in 1990, and was designated an aeronautical engineer in 1994. He qualified in the HH-60 and the HH-65 helicopters and the HC-130 aircraft and commanded Air Station Savannah, Georgia, and Air Station Barbers Point, Hawaii. In addition to his operational assignments, he has served in a variety of staff assignments from New London to Juneau to Washington, D.C. And along the way, he also earned master's degrees from Purdue University and the National Defense University. So quite a list of accomplishments. Thank you for joining us tonight, Admiral.
Super, Steve. Thank you so much, and great to see some familiar faces out there, and look forward to doing it in person. But I got to give Alex a lot of credit. He was doing great, taking all the hard questions. I was going to say, hey, keep going. But a real credit, not only is he leading at the leading edge of operations here in Puget Sound for our Coast Guard, he's also a great commanding officer. And I know that personally, many of you who wore the uniform or even now in your Navy League function, when you go do those unit visits, you can walk in and get the feel right away. And I can tell you that Station Seattle is well led and has a high morale crew, and a lot of that credit goes to Alex. So well done, Alex, and thanks for taking all those tough questions tonight. Hey, I'm tuning in from Alki Point. We were talking about that earlier, the historical lighthouse out here, and we had the pleasure earlier today of promoting Captain Megan Dean to Rear Admiral Megan Dean, and with that promotion, unfortunately, she is moving on to DC, but is going to serve as our Congressional Affairs and Public Affairs liaison for the entire Coast Guard. She's going to do a fantastic job. We're incredibly proud of her. But again, Steve, thank you for the opportunity. Jeff, great seeing you. Larry as well, and certainly colleagues, Admiral Steve Metrick and certainly Admiral Kuzmic. Great to be here tonight. And thank you to everyone in the Navy League for your incredible support. Alex addressed that earlier. But my gosh, since 1902, under the direction and leadership of Teddy Roosevelt, the Navy League has been supporting our sea services and doing incredible work to keep the public informed, to help the public understand the importance of the maritime community and certainly the sea services in support of the maritime community. And almost as important, or maybe even more important, is the support that you provide to those of us who are in the maritime service, the sea services. Certainly last year during the shutdown and this year during the global pandemic, even despite the fact that we were not able to be together, you were still there providing support, recognizing our amazing Coast Guard women and men, and certainly Marines, Navy, merchant mariners, for their incredible contributions to the safety and security of this nation. So thank you to the Navy League. Hey, your Coast Guard is incredibly relevant to national security. We are a global force, to be sure. And you see that every day. Recently in the media, many of you saw that Coast Guard cutters operating in the Straits of Hormuz off of Iran, firing warning shots on Iraqi Guard vessels that were threatening U.S. naval vessels and certainly merchant vessels transiting through that area. And the Coast Guard's been there in partnership for the Navy for many, many years. And we're very pleased this year to be sending our new updated fast response cutters to replace our aging 110s. That's going to provide more capability for our forces over there, ensuring the security of not only U.S. maritime interests, but international maritime interests in a challenging region. Along the same lines, just a few weeks ago, or just a week ago, we saw a prior Coast Guard 378-foot high endurance cutter leaving port here and heading north, and under the flag of Vietnam, Vietnamese Coast Guard vessel. And our partnership with the Vietnamese is to address ongoing prevalent Chinese incursions into their maritime waters, primarily affecting their fisheries, but also affecting their sovereignty, and the Vietnamese Coast Guard, the U.S. Coast Guard supporting their efforts to provide security for their vessels, for their fishing fleets, and ensure their sovereignty in the region. The Coast Guard Cutter Healy, we had a question earlier about our presence in the Arctic, in the Antarctic. Certainly our Polar class cutter is still making trips to the Antarctic to do the breakout in McMurdo in partnership with the U.S. Navy. And the Healy just got back from a significant Arctic deployment where they got about as close as they ever have to the top of the globe, and a very successful deployment, but paid a price. They've been in the yard for quite a while. They're going through an engine overhaul now, but they are getting ready and going to be underway soon to transit the Northwest Passage in the coming year. Again, the ability for the Coast Guard to be the representative of the United States to exercise our sovereignty in the Arctic region and the polar domains. The Coast Guard is proud to partner with the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Air Force in those regions as well. And then certainly on a regular basis, Coast Guard maintains maritime forces off of the coast of Colombia and Panama, fighting international drug trafficking, exercising our not only our military Title 10 authorities, but our law enforcement, our international law enforcement authorities to prevent the scourge of drugs, illegal drugs, from entering into our country. Some of the more recent focus for the Coast Guard at the national level has been on recapitalization programs, been very successful, great support, and that doesn't happen without folks like you in the Navy League. We are excited about our national security cutter fleet. We're have the hull number 12 in play now. Polar security cutters, I'll get to that in a minute, but we are building number 1. We've got lead time materials for number 2. We've got authorization and initiating appropriation for number 3. Those 3 polar security cutters are coming here. Our offshore patrol cutter program is well underway. There'll be capable assets that will be, again, pushing Coast Guard authorities and our support to the U.S. Navy around the globe. We just got authorization to build waterways commerce cutters, which will be tenders and construction vessels working in our inland waterways, ensuring aids to navigation, and certainly important here in this region, the Columbia River and the Snake River being an important conduit to bring commodities from the Midwest and shipping them overseas. We ensure their safety and security as they transit those waterways. And I earlier mentioned our fast response cutters being built. Certainly we've acquired more C-130Js, and we've just made a decision to transition our helicopter fleet to an almost all HH-60 fleet. As these new assets coming online, they have the larger flight decks, which can handle the larger rotary wing assets. And I would say now that our Commandant, Admiral Carl Schultz, his focus has really been on readiness, and our budgets focus on readiness, and certainly working on personnel training, getting the parts we need, getting the resources we need to continue to conduct our important missions here in continental U.S. and around the globe. In the Pacific Northwest, as you heard, 3,000 Coast Guard women and men conducting important missions, search and rescue, law enforcement, support to defense operations, our escort missions of the subs across the Sound here, aids to navigation, certainly environmental protection. We support a maritime system. Steve Metrick is on board tonight. 500,000 jobs here in the state of Washington, the largest ferry system in the country. And our Coast Guard women and men, and you heard that about Station Seattle today, providing security and safety for those important operations. And then something we're very excited about, and you probably saw recent in Seattle Times, is that the Coast Guard is currently in negotiations with the Seaport Alliance on expanding or enhancing our base on the waterfront down there. I like to call it Home Port Seattle, to either purchase or create a long-term lease for up to 54 acres. It depends on what type of arrangements can be made, but we definitely will be enhancing the capability to home port our 3 polar security cutters. And we would like to enhance our home port to have up to 8 berths, potentially there in that downtown, what we'll call Home Port Seattle, right there on the waterfront, or maybe in other parts of Puget Sound, to either home port 3 polar security cutters, maybe some additional polar security cutters, but certainly some additional, some of the new offshore patrol cutters. They will be home ported here in Puget Sound. Specific location to be determined, but something we're very excited about. And I know last thing I'll mention before opening it up for questions is a lot of press and media about the anchorages here lately. And I tell you, I'm looking out the window over at Manchester, 3 vessels in place right now. We know there's a lot of landside logistics that's creating some of that backlog. But I think Puget Sound is the beneficiary of the backlog at ports up and down the West Coast. Those vessels will get in port, bring needed commodities, needed products here. It's all about maritime commerce. However, it's a balance between environmental stewardship, safety, security, and you can be assured that your Coast Guard is out there patrolling and ensuring that those anchorages, that everything is maintained, everything is operated in a safe manner, and we do it in partnership with Steve Metrick and his great team here in the port, and certainly the Seaport Alliance. With that, I'll close, and just again, thank you to the Navy League for all you do. We are excited to be a part of the maritime community here in Seattle, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Admiral. We do have time for questions sent in by tonight's attendees, which will be posed by Whitney Moore, our Vice President for Communications.
So the Admiral gets like a 2-page introduction and I get 1 sentence. I feel like I just see, whatever. Admiral, you and I met on Fleet Week. It was 2019. It was at the Edmonton and Nanaimo Moose Milk competition because I was the judge, most probably the greatest judge of the Canadian moose milk in the history of the world. So Steve, that's my new bio. Thank you. All right, our first question for you this evening. What's the timeline for infrastructure updates at the various Coast Guard ship and air bases / stations in the region? Now, I'm not sure if they want a timeline per base or station, but what's the timeline in general for infrastructure updates at the various Coast Guard ship and air bases and stations in the region?
It's a great question. Right now, I would say the most the upfront project is what I just described as Home Port Seattle. As was announced, we are out in the public comment period on the environmental impact statement. Critically important as we engage with tribal interest and other waterfront constituents that have concerns about how we operate that waterfront. Just offhand, we are initiating the process, and I would say 24, 25 is, we will definitely be in construction and development here in Home Port Seattle to ensure that the PSCs that come out of production have a base. There might be some swing space requirements for a while as we roll into the end of the decade. Down in Astoria, Oregon, which is going to be the home port for 2, maybe 1 to 2 more FRCs. That construction will begin again about 4 to 5 years from now. We have to go through the environmental impact process, and we should have that home port infrastructure, including maintenance support beams, again by the end of the decade. The OPC process, we are very early in the very early stages of that. I would be, again, we're hoping for 8 berths here to give us options, but we know that that's a process we need to work through with our partners in the region. But at a minimum, we feel confident on the 3 to 4 berths, and but we will need up to 4 more for those OPCs or even future PSCs. I don't see that happening until probably in the 2030 timeframe.
Wow. Okay. Is the tendency right before you retire to make a bunch of aggressive timelines and then peace out? I'm just curious. I have never retired from anything, but no, are you nice? Just curious.
Well, no, I think the timelines I gave, I'll be honest, COVID slid some things to the right, but we would certainly, it's a process. And I think engaging all stakeholders on the process, understanding the concerns, and then, and I'll be honest, part of the OPC, some of that, this conversation and discussion will be connected to our colleagues in the U.S. Navy, because maybe coordinating with them at some of their facilities in the region, that could be a possibility, but still to be determined. So we have kind of a long way to go when it talks about where the home port will be for the offshore patrol cutters here in the Pacific Northwest. We will definitely have 3 polar security cutters here. That's exciting. That means that waterfront, as far as what you see when you look at the Coast Guard, is going to be much enhanced with some better shoreside infrastructure to support those vessels crews.
Great.
Yeah.
Another question, how much interaction does the Coast Guard have with Canadian Maritime Forwards in Equimalt? That's a new one. Am I saying that correctly, Larry? Thanks for putting a hard word in the chat last minute for an on-the-spot question. Great. How much interaction does the Coast Guard have with Canadian Marine? Marine Forward? Did you mean maritime, or did you spell marine wrong? You're not allowed to ask questions on chat
Maritime
anymore.
forces, sorry, that's Esquimalt.
I think
Great.
it was,
Maritime Forces.
Sorry,
that's with, with Bob Actalone, Admiral Bob Actalone and his team up in Canada. We, Canada, as we're well aware, the border has been pretty essentially closed during this COVID environment. Canadian forces, Canadian Coast Guard, their vaccination program has been greatly accelerated here just in the past weeks. We are looking forward to more joint exercises with not only the Canadian Maritime Forces, but our Canadian Coast Guard partners who we do the environmental stewardship work with, and as well as the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, their maritime component. We do a lot of law enforcement work with them as well. All of that's been on hold over the past year, but we look forward to, a lot of entities that we work with, but looking forward to enhancing those engagements. And then certainly with the Navy, Canadian Naval Forces, exercises coming up in the coming year, we're looking for those to kind of restart.
Cool. How has the pandemic changed the way that you accomplish your mission?
I think Alex spoke to that. Our biggest focus from the start of the pandemic was the safety of our force, and also the readiness of our force to do our missions. So as he mentioned, and it was tough, we put restrictions on leave and liberty. We had some isolations on operational crews. We learned a lot as we moved through it. And certainly vaccinating our workforce has really gotten us much closer to what we all knew as a normal world before March of 2020. But I got to be honest, and I'm really proud of the team here. Our readiness rate, our ability to conduct our missions, and our responsiveness, we haven't had much change. If we did have a patrol boat who maybe had a quarantine type scare, another crew stepped up and took the mission. So throughout this process, our crews have been ready and have been there and responsive to conduct our important missions.
Great. Alex also touched on this next question a little bit. How has the Coast Guard approached vaccination hesitancy among its members?
Yeah, it's a great question. And as he mentioned, it's still voluntary at this point. Not everyone has chosen to take the vaccine, but I think as you're seeing in society, what's happening now is opportunities, I'll call it that, have opened up for vaccinated personnel. And we've reduced quarantine requirements, what we call, isolating at home before you're deploying your cutter. We've reduced that requirement for vaccinated personnel. So I think understanding that as a vaccinated workforce, we're going to be a more effective, a more ready workforce and available to do our jobs. I think that is really kind of convincing people to be vaccinated. But I get in the Coast Guard, I think for a range of reasons, but forces on the West Coast have a much higher vaccination rate than other parts of the country. I'll leave it at that. And certainly no different here in the Pacific Northwest. We have, as you heard, Alex's unit is 95%. We're well into, the 80% mark at most of our units.
Okay, and we have our next question is from Larry. I don't trust your spelling in the chat, so I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. The nerve of you to send, I don't know what that says. So Larry, I'm not kidding. Thank you. Please ask it yourself.
Hang on. So Admiral, question. So with search and rescue, with the NAS Whidbey Island, do you utilize the P8s for ocean search and rescue, or even in the Puget Sound area if it's a large enough area?
I would, offhand, no. The ability and the kind of arrangement and the agreements is there to ask our Navy partners to assist us, but we really haven't used the P8s in that capacity. We've had great support from our Air Forces coming out of Northern California to support our needs up here, whether that be patrol or even search and rescue. We do call on Whidbey on their helo crews to back us up, and that happens fairly frequently with support to our air unit in Port Angeles.
I just had a question because I was an OVP guy, so that's why.
Great. Next question. From your 34-year career, 34 years of service, how has the Coast Guard changed over the course of your career? Every single way. Please enumerate them all.
Yeah.
30 seconds or less.
Wow. Yeah, I could name off, a number of things. So I think one thing that's become, while we have always been prevalent, I mean, the Coast Guard has battle streamers from every conflict the United States has ever been a part of. Not many people know that. But I think what's really changed, and I mentioned in my comments, is that the Coast Guard has really broadened the aperture from a domestic force, but domestic, I'm including Alaska and Puerto Rico and Hawaii, where but have really pushed out and taken our unique capabilities, our law enforcement authorities, our prevention expertise, marine safety expertise, environmental stewardship expertise, oil spill response around the globe, and defense and law enforcement. We are tied in with all the combatant commands. We are supporting a myriad of agencies for other governments. It does kind of stress the organization sometimes from a readiness standpoint, but it's important to the international community that where the Coast Guard does have expertise, that we share that expertise.
Excellent. And your last question, what do you see as the primary challenges for service in the future, for the service in the future? Primary challenges for the service in the future?
I'll mention two, and this is one that I mention quite frequently. You know, a lot of our organizational construct, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's still kind of a post-World War II DoD coattails type looking organization. And especially in this area where you have companies, the Googles, the Amazons, the intellectual capital companies, how they're designed and organized, especially from an HR management perspective. You know, we're a military service, and we can't be exactly like that. But I think we need to really adjust some of our organizational design, how we're structured to represent just kind of new practices in HR management, how the world works nowadays in many ways. And that ties into probably the second challenge. So the first one being how we're organized primarily to manage human resources issues, but how we bring that human capital in. I mean, right now, military eligible at that age is highly competitive arena. Coast Guard, I think we compete with our mission sets, but we also need to understand that it's a much more experiential kind of group of, you know, in the generation, the younger generation. And with the new blended retirement system in the military, we're talking about today, I don't know if our organization, I don't know if DoD has understood the cultural significance. We've always been kind of these up and out pyramid shaped organizations. I like to say moving forward, we're more of an out and up organization, meaning culturally, we need to understand that young women and men are coming in for one enlistment, for one, you know, one assignment as an officer, and they're not necessarily coming in with a career in mind. And the blended retirement, it kind of aligns to that mindset. We need to understand that changing perspective. And as leaders, you know, work hard to keep people in, to retain people, but also understand that if someone comes in and they want to do one tour of service, that we thank them for their service. Thank you for serving your nation, and help them in the next phase of life. And then welcome in that next person who's choosing to take the oath and come into our organization and wear the uniform. And so, yeah, two challenges: bringing in that next group, retaining them, and our organizational infrastructure. So yeah, good question. Thank you.
That's great insight. So that's all of my questions, and I wish you all of the best in your retirement. I hope that they name a ship after you.
I don't think that's going to happen, but thanks. But
I will start the petition now.
I'll do my best to enjoy moose milk as much as you did, Whitney, because I do remember that contest.
I'm honored. I'm honored.
All right.
I believe, Jeff, is it
So
your?
Admiral, when you retired, you're going to join the Navy League and help support Navy League?
I absolutely will, because I promise you that. I don't know where it'll be though. So we're to be determined on our final landing spot, but excited about that.
Okay, well, thank you, Whitney. Thank you, Admiral, for taking the time to join us tonight and answer these questions. I figured that maybe this was kind of a warm up for your retirement speech, but you have definitely helped us improve our knowledge and understanding of the Coast Guard in our region, which help us in Navy League, and we hope that you're with us in our mission of advocacy and support in years to come. Before we close for tonight, I'll ask Larry Salter, if he can, to say a few words about the Navy League National Convention that's coming up this weekend.
Yeah, the annual Navy League Convention is this weekend in St. Louis, Missouri. Starts on Friday with nominations for various and sundry positions, and then meetings on Saturday, and finish up with some training and meetings on Sunday morning, and then we come home. A couple of big changes in Navy League that we voted in on May 19th at the Board of Directors meeting, and that is one, to open up membership to active duty. So that's new. It's not 100% new to the Navy League. We did it back around World War II timeframe, so it's not absolutely new, but surely a recent change. So details, they're still working through them and stuff, but I think they'll end up with just the same standard membership categories, but just allow our active duty members to be members of Navy League. Second big change was they changed the governance model a little bit, and our current executive director at National Navy League has become the CEO. More responsibilities, more on day-to-day stuff, and more ability for him to manage and run the National Navy League. He still reports to the board of directors, and the national president becomes more of a chairman of the board construct instead of getting his fingers in the day-to-day stuff as much as they do right now. And so those were the two big changes. And we're working through how those details will float down, but we will come out with announcements on the active duty membership, and they did that for two reasons. One, a number of folks have asked who are on active duty, hey, can I become a member? And so we wanted to allow them to do that. It increases the pool of potential members, and so there's good reasons for it. And again, to make it effective, we need to roll it out in the correct manner and bring it to people's attention. But and in that whole big governance thing, we used to have 2 annual meetings. Now we're only going to have 1, and that's the summer meeting. And so transitioning out of the last one we did was virtual, limited success. I'm being kind. It sucked. Larry's personal opinion. But this year we made it in person, and not going to have as big a audience as we normally would have at an annual convention, but it'll tee us up for next year to get it, to get more participation at the face-to-face meeting. I'll take any questions if anybody has anything, but thanks for the opportunity, Steve.
All right, thanks, Larry. So we look forward to hearing the news of the national meeting and the decisions that they make, which will, for everyone, you'll probably get the email directly from National, but we'll also highlight it in Scuttlebutt. So everyone, that concludes the actual business of the meeting. We look forward to the time when this will mean a return to conversation with others around the dinner table. But in the meantime, tonight we'll keep the Zoom call open for a while afterwards for a chance to chat with each other. I want to thank everybody for attending, and we want to thank our Navy League sponsors that you see on the slide here, who make our work in support of the sea services possible. A number of these sponsors have been with us for many years, and you recognize their names, and we thank them for their continuing dedication to our mission. I also want to thank the volunteers who planned and presented the meeting tonight, particularly Jeff Davis behind the scenes at the control switch and all the backstage technical details. A recording of the meeting will be posted on our YouTube page, and links from our website and our social media, you'll be able to find it there. And we'd like to hear from you on your ideas about how the meeting has gone, how we can make them better, as well as any place that you'd like to help us volunteer, particularly with creating content for our virtual Fleet Week in the next month or so. So look for updates on coming events in Scuttlebutt and our social media. And we hope to see you all at the virtual social on June 24th. And I'll just say have a good evening now.